If we can get back to that. And I thought when I picked up this Bible today and I began to look through it, and I thought, I'm picking up my old. And it's not always good to pick up your old, but there's some times when there's a reviving that needs to take place. Sometimes we get into a place where we're caught in the today and we're caught in the consuming of the world, and we don't pray as much, or we don't seek as much, or we don't think about how we need to be more than we were before. But he's bringing up that again. He's reviving that again in our land. And for those that are out there seeking, truly seeking God, he's doing a new thing. And he is bringing about his presence and his spirit and his strength. And so I thought, I loved, and they were singing, what a mighty God we serve, because I've been studying all day and his goodness and how good he is and how strong and mighty, even when we're weak, even when we are at our worst moments. And I thought about how people today, they say, oh, this isn't as real. I mean, it's real. It happened back then, but God don't speak to us today like that. You know, and you'll say, God told me, or God showed me that this is going to happen, or God showed me that I need to go pray with you. And people will say, oh, that's just you. God don't show people stuff like that. God don't lead people. That's your emotions. Oh, but the God that talked to Abraham and told him to pack up and to go to a country that he was going to show him, that God still speaks to us today. The God that spoke to Isaiah, Jeremiah, Jacob, David, the God that spoke even in these days, he's still speaking today. He's still leading us today. It's us that's backing up. It's us that when he sometimes shows us something, if it's not just what we want to hear, I don't know what that was. That was a thought that shouldn't have been there. We don't accept when God tells us something. We don't accept and we don't seek him like we should. And anyway, that wasn't even part of my message. But you all, I had been excited about the Lord all day. But anyways, we've got Joash here. Joash was the king of Israel. And Joash was an evil king. Israel didn't have very many good kings. Israel had a lot of failed kings, evil doers. And Joash was the king, and he didn't believe in God. He was leading Israel down a wrong path. And Elisha has grown sick. And Elisha's laying on his deathbed. And Elisha we know that he got the double anointing from Elijah. He performed more miracles during his time than Elijah did. And he prophesied and prophesied. So King Joash knows that this is a man of God. Even though Joash does not believe in God, Joash has set idols up all over the town and told the Israelites to worship and to serve these golden or wooden or whatever images. And as I thought about Joash today and how he went to Elisha, and he went to him, and it says that he leaned over him and he wept and he cried and he said, about the horsemen, and he's making this big to-do. And I thought, first of all, I think he went there on a selfish reason, because he, first of all, didn't believe in God. So he goes there because he knows, and he's thinking, now, the man of God is dying. This guy that's prophesied, this guy that's done miracles in our land, what's going to happen to Israel now? What's going to happen when he dies? Where are we going to get our words? Where are we going to get our miracles? Where are we going to get all of this? And so it's a selfish reason, I think, that Joash went to look over Elisha. He went to visit him that last time, selfishly. And Elisha tells him, Elisha says, Joash, he's worried because they're going to war with the Armenians. They're going to war with them. They're about to. And he's worried. And so Elisha says, okay. He says, Joash, I want you to get you a bow. And I'm not going to shoot this, y'all, so don't be scared, because Russell, watch out. But he gets him a bow, and it's just for imagery. And Elisha says, Joash, I want you to get you a bow and some arrows. And I want you to pick it up. And so Joash does. And he says, okay, and he comes up, and now here's Elisha, who is on his deathbed. You can imagine he's weak, he's sick, but he's still being used by God. And he gets up and he stands up, and Joash says, okay, I've got my bow and I've got my arrows. And he says, Joash, I want you, and Elisha puts his hands on Joash's hands because Joash is not a believer. Joash doesn't believe in God. And so the power of God is flowing through Elisha. And so he puts his hands on Joash's hands and he says, you open that window and you shoot your arrow out that window. And as that arrow flowed out that window, Elisha said, there goes your victory. The deliverance, as that arrow went through the Aramean district, the Aramean district, he said, the victory is yours, and you will consume them. And Joash, I'm sure I can picture, because he does not believe in God. He is evil. He is against God. So he's probably standing here thinking, okay, whatever. This guy's just going through his religious activities. And so then Elisha says, okay, Joash, now pick up some of your other arrows. And he says, okay. So he picks them up. And Joash is just going through the motions. He don't believe that anything is of this. He's not counting on any of this. He's simply going through the motions. We have people today simply going through the motions. We have gotten to a place in our land and our society today where people will walk into a church. They will claim to be Christians. They will claim to trust in God. But when it comes to truly believing what God says, they don't. God will heal you. Well, yeah, but, I'm going to have this. The doctor didn't say it. People today don't trust in God. And there stands Joash. He's not trusting. He's not trusting that the man of God is even speaking the truth. People, how many times today do people, when somebody speaks the truth that God has given them, that they don't trust and they don't believe? Oh, God didn't show them anything. But it's not, and sometimes I take that back. Sometimes that is true. We can't trust in everything. We can't believe everybody that says, hey, God, give me this. But you stand it out, and if it comes to pass, you know God was speaking. You know he was moving. And Elisha says, Joash, I want you to take those arrows, and I want you to smack them on the ground. And so Joash says, oh, okay, all right, brother. And he just goes, 3, and he stops. 3 times he smacked the ground. And Elisha says, whoa, brother, why did you stop at 3? And he says, hold up. And he's mad, and he's angry. He said, do you not realize that when you shot that arrow out, that God said you was going to get your deliverance? He said, and then God tells you through me to pick up and smash the ground 3 times with your arrows. And you stopped at 3. And he said, if you had believed, if you had trusted, then you would have kept on smashing. And you would have kept on smashing until you got your victory. He said, and if you had have kept on, God would have totally given you the Arameans. He would have totally have let you and your army wiped them out. But because you stopped at 3, because you didn't truly believe and trust God, you're going to win 3 times in the battle with them. But then that's it. You're only going to win those 3 times that you hit that ground. And so many times today, we give up before we get our victory. Joash gave up. He didn't truly believe. He didn't think God was moving. He just thought this old man was sick and was fulfilling his religious duties. But it was when Elisha told him, you just missed your victory, buddy. You gave up too quick. We can't give up too quick. When God is urging us to do something, when God is moving in us, so many throughout this message, that get up song, we have to get up and do it. If God says, and he'll move in the weirdest ways. Is that not weird to shoot an arrow out a window? And is that not weird to smack the ground with an arrow? And that guy was going to get a victory in his battle. God will use the weirdest of ways. And today people will look at him and be like, oh my gosh, you're so silly. You've lost your ever-loving mind. And God's saying, oh, he's trying to show people that it is definitely him. Because through smacking an arrow on the ground wasn't going to do anything unless God did it. It had to be through his hand, through his power, through his direction. It's through him where we get what we get. It's through him where we grow and we get our victory. But we have to be willing to step out and say, Lord, even if you tell me to do the stupidest thing, I'm still going to do it. Even if everybody looks at me and says, you've lost your mind, I'm still going to do it because I truly believe. I truly have faith in what you're teaching me and what you're telling me, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss my blessing. I don't want to miss what's coming if I disobey God or if I stop halfway. And when we're praying for something, don't give up just because the answer don't come just like that, because the answer will come in God's time. But you've got to hang on and you've got to know, my answer's coming. My answer's on its way. And so we have to get to that place where we trust. In Joshua chapter 8, verses 18, the Lord said to Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in thine hand toward Ai, for I will give it to thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city. And when Joshua and all of Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city ascended, they turned again and slew the men of Ai. For Joshua drew not his hand back, wherewith he stretched out the spear until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Now this started back when Joshua and his crew marched around Jericho. Now when they marched around Jericho 7 times and God brought that down, they got the big head. Sometimes God moves for some and we get the big head. Joshua and them thought, oh, we've got this. So they looked towards Ai, which was their next place they had to go conquer. And Ai was small, and they thought, we've got this, guys. Let's not worry about it. Let's just go. Let's just take them. And so they marched forward, but they lost that battle because they didn't go in the name of God. They didn't seek God first. They thought they had it all on their own. Do we ever sometimes think, I got this. I don't need to pray about it. I'm just going to go take care of it. Or we'll even pray about it and still think, I know how to take care of this. We don't give it to God first. We don't stop and say, okay, Lord, I'm not stepping forward anywhere until you make sure you tell me which direction I need to go, because I don't want to mess it up. We get in our own thoughts, in our own way, and we think we've got it, and then we screw it up. And Joshua and his guys thought they had Ai. They thought they no big deal. That's a small town. But then they lost the battle. If we don't give it to God first, if he's not at our head and he's not in the middle and he's not at the end, we are bound for destruction, because we need to be surrounded by his plan and not our own plan. We have fleshly plans. He sees the whole deal. So they went out and they lost the battle. So then God is telling Joshua at this time, you're going to go back out and fight Ai again. You're going to go towards them again. And he said, this time, you're going to win the battle. And Joshua goes back, and he takes his crew, and they go back towards Ai. And they're going, and Joshua says he sets the plan out. But this time his plan is governed by God. And he says, okay, guys, what we're going to do, some of you are going to go get behind them, and you're going to be standing behind in the back of the town. He said, we're going to move forward. And when they see us, we're going to turn and flee like we did the last time. So they're going to think we're running away from them. When we run away from them, they're going to chase us. Then you all hit their town. And so they've got it all planned out, and they're ready. And it happens just like that. When Joshua and his crew turn to flee, Ai and them follow them. The people in the back, the Ai never knew was there. Never knew that the enemy, that Joshua's crew, forgive me, they're not the enemy, but that Joshua's crew had them surrounded. Never even realized that once they hit this direction, Joshua's army was moving in. And they set their town on fire. And then Ai turns around, and they see the smoke, and they see the flames, and they realized they done been hit. They were lost. They had lost that battle. And God tells Joshua, you stretch, and y'all, if this starts making crazy lighted neon noises, he said, you stretch your sword out, you stretch your whatever out, and you hold it there, because the victory is yours. And the word tells us that Joshua stood there, and he stretched it out, and it said he never backed up, he never withdrew his hand until the victory was totally, completely won. He didn't back up too quick. He was not about to screw up this time. He stretched his hand forward and he stood there and he counted on God and he trusted in God until the battle became his. And they won the victory over that because of something silly, as God's saying, just stretch forth your sword. Just stretch it forth towards Ai, where I'm bringing you your victory. It takes something silly sometimes, but when God says just do it, you do it because there's victory going to follow up whatever you do. And like it said, Joshua didn't withdraw his hand back and he didn't say, oh man, I'm tired. I would have done that, y'all. My hands get tired. I'll be brushing my hair and I'm like, oh, good gravy. It looks good enough because my arms get tired. But Joshua didn't. Joshua just stood there because he said, oh, God's bringing me the victory. And he was waiting with anticipation and he wasn't about to withdraw and pull back too fast. Because we can't withdraw too fast. We are the children of God. We are his chosen soldiers. And if we just stand and firmly believe in him, not like the world does that comes and goes 1 minute, oh, I believe today, and then the next minute, well, you know what? I wouldn't be going through this if God was paying any attention. But if we truly, firmly stand, and we truly, firmly stand no matter what people say about us, no matter what they think about us, no matter what comes against us, we will see the victory. And it might take a year, and it might take 5 years, but the victory is ours because he already promised us the victory. And if he says to go and stand over there and stand on 2 toes, I mean, do it because you might look like a weirdo. But in God, all things are good. All things. If he tells you to do something, it is worth doing whatever it is because there is good that follows it. There is always good that follows serving God. We look at Exodus 17:11. I'm done with my toys. So y'all. Exodus 17:11. It came to pass that when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Now we know that Moses is standing up here. Joshua has been told, you take the army and you go out to battle Amalek. And God tells Moses, you go up and you stand up on the mountain. And Moses tells Joshua, as long as my hands are up, you keep fighting. And so Moses goes up there and he stands and he's got his hands raised. As long as his hands were raised, Joshua's army stood victorious and they won. If Moses would let his hands down because he got tired, the Amaleks began to win. So Moses realized, and Joshua realized, those hands got to go up, and they've got to stay up. And so when Moses' hands got tired, here comes Aaron and Hur, and they prop him up on a rock, and they hold his hands up for him so that his hands stayed up at all times, and victory came through just him lifting his hands, through just him raising his hands. Our victory can come through a raise of our hands that's praising an almighty God that says, I am your victor. That says, I will fight your battle for you. He said, if you just give me the battle, I'm going to fight it for you. And then we stand with arms raised. And we trust and we know, and even when we're tired, and even when it's hard, and even when we feel like we just want to give up, we stand and we say, oh, I know, Lord, that it's coming. I know that the blessing is coming. I know that this is going to pass, for this too shall pass. Like weeping will endure for the night, but joy always comes in the morning. When we serve God, when we stand with him, no matter how it looks around us, but we trust. And we keep our hands raised. And we keep, do you notice in each one of those he used their hands? But it was not their hands that had the power. It was their faith in the hand of an almighty God, and his hand in their hand brought their victory. Whether it was to put their hands on Joash's bow, or whether it was to put their hands on that spear towards Ai, or whether it was to put his hands in Moses's and lift them up for victory against the Amalekites. He can put his hands in your hands. He can put his feet in your feet. And he can move you in his power. Not your power, not your strength, not your plan or your will, but in his. Because he is almighty. Because he is good enough to do whatever we need. He loves us and he cares about us. Psalms 18, I didn't give you this one. Psalms chapter 18, 30 to 43. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this one. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all of those that trust in him. For who is God save the Lord? Or who is a rock save our God? It is God that girds me with strength and makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like hinds' feet, and he sets me upon my high places. He teaches my hands to war, so that a bow of steel is broken by my arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of thy salvation, and thy right hand holds me up, and thy gentleness has made me great. To 43. Thou hast enlarged my steps under me, that my feet did not slip. I have pursued mine enemies and overtaken them. Neither did I turn again until they were consumed. I have wounded them that were not able to rise. They are fallen under my feet. For thou hast girded me with strength into the battle. Thou hast subdued under me those that rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of mine enemies, that I may destroy them that hate me. They cried, but there was none to save them, even unto the Lord, but he answered them not. Then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I cast them out as the dirt in the streets. Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people. Thou hast made me the head of the heathen. A people whom I have not known shall serve me. This was David. David was praising God here. He was praising God, and he was remembering all throughout Psalms chapter 18. He was remembering things that God had brought him through. God brought David through a lot of things. He kept him safe in a cave. He done many, many things he brought David through. And David was praising God and said, you are my strength. You are the one that shields me. You are the one that gives me my salvation. It is you that will keep me strong. It is you that will set the enemies under my feet. It is you that gives me the power to win in the battle. He even said, Lord, you taught me how to battle and to war with my own hands, to the point that he had strength to bend a metal pole. God gives us our strength, and we have to not forget to praise him, to worship him. All throughout Psalms, David's praising God for the victories that God's given him. And he never doubts that God is going to bring him victory. And so many times today, we face opposition against people, family, jobs. People come against us because we are different. God told us, be different. Don't join in with the world. Be separated. And that means people, now that we're getting further and further closer to the end of time, they're getting angrier and angrier with us. They don't believe anything we say. They rise up against us and cause issues. And we have to just know that God's in control. We have to know that God's fighting that battle. And one day their eyes will be opened. If it's not here, if they're speaking against you and it's not here that their eyes are opened, they will stand before God one day. Amen. And they will have to answer for anything they've done that's come against any of us. So we have to remember that it's not our battle, that we don't have to win it. We just have to put our trust and our faith in God and know that he's going to win it for us. And know that everything, he said it wasn't easy for him. When he walked this earth, he was the Son of God. And he walked a pure, perfect life. No sin whatsoever. He showed gentleness. He showed kindness. He opened blinded eyes. And he suffered some of the hardest times that's ever been known. They lied on him. They mistreated him. They rejected him. Now, if he, in his perfection, walked the face of this earth and he got done that way, why should we expect anything different? Why should we think that we should have an easier life, that we should just get it all laid out for us, and God should be our genie in a bottle, and when something goes wrong, he should just whip it up and smack them down? That would be awesome, but that's not what he tells us in his word. He does not tell us in his word that I'm just going to clear the path for you. Instead, he says, you're going to have some trouble. You're going to have a lot of trouble. The closer that the time gets, the more trouble you're going to have. But you stand and you know that there's a race to be won. And I don't know about you guys, but in this race, we are a family. We are winning this race together. And if I fall, I hope that every one of you will come and stand behind me and lift me up and say, you know what, come on, let's go. And if you fall, we're going to all come along and we're going to lift you up and say, come on, let's go. And together we're going to win this. Together we're going to cross through those pearly gates and we're going to hear him say, well done, my good and faithful servant. We are going to get to rejoice in heaven together, and we are going to get to make it home. We have to stand, and it won't be easy, but let's stand together. Let's stand united and know that he's seeing us through this. I'm going to ask him to come back to the music. I thank you all for being here. I pray that we stand together. I pray that we grow stronger this year. I pray that we begin to trust. When God's speaking to you, trust in it. Even if somebody tries to tell you, many of us have heard his voice. We know his voice. Trust and don't let people cause you to doubt who you are in God. You are somebody in God, no matter what anybody else says. If you need prayer tonight, come up and we'll pray with you. Otherwise, praise, worship, gather around the altars, and let's just seek God tonight.
Greetings, everyone. So glad to have you with us. I hope you enjoyed the video, the message today. I just ask that if you would to push the like button and the share button, share us with others, and want to invite you to come out and be with us in the house whenever possible. We love you and you're welcome at Victory Tabernacle.